we get the show grooving. And today, man, to today's text, I had the opportunity to visit Concord yesterday. Man, shout out to Concord, shout out to Pastor Carter, getting to spend some time with the good people over there on that side of Dallas. And as he preached yesterday, there was one reference scripture that he brought up that really hit home for me as one of the focuses for his message, and he just began to talk a little bit about justice. And seeing that currently where we are right now as redistricting is now currently a thing, and this is a conversation. And as we know, that redistricting isn't something that typically is new, especially not in the southern sector of Dallas, as well as some areas of Austin and different things like that. However, it hit home for us here down in Dallas, because when areas are redistricted, then resources are now being needing to be shifted and allocated, and many of those who have been thriving businesses are now businesses that are having to do without. So in the text today that I want to break down in first Isaiah chapter verse 17, the text reads, "Learn to do good, seek justice, rebuke the oppressor, obtain justice for the orphan, and plead for the widow's case." Learn to do good, seek justice, rebuke the oppressor, obtain justice for the orphan, and plead for the widow's case. In the Christian life, one thing that we never can skip over is understanding that being a Christian does not mean that we can't fight for justice, right? Being a Christian does not mean that we can't do and we should do good for others. But at the same time, in the one version of the text says, bring justice to the fatherless and plead the widow's case, right? Because oftentimes in the Old Testament, the widow are brought up and the orphan are brought up because they, in this sense or in this context, they've been left without necessity of life due to the family provider being gone, or due to the family provider passing on. So understanding that if we are the body of the church, and we are the hands and feet of Christ, understanding that if we see that somebody is without, if we see that somebody is lacking something, and we can serve that need, and we can do good for those individuals, or doing that for the body, then we should do that, right? Because we must understand that if we don't, then who? And then if not now, then when? So the thought for today is just focus on learning on just doing good, right? Because it's not hard if you see somebody at lunch without lunch, and you're eating your lunch, and maybe you have a couple extra dollars, maybe you have an extra snack, maybe you have an extra sandwich. Why not, right? Why not be able to share that with that individual or with that person? Because it's not hard to be a good person, but sometimes it does require a little bit of selflessness, and at the same time, even requiring selflessness, but taking time to look around you, right? Where is my awareness at, to where I can see that there's somebody that maybe might not need a sandwich, but they might need an encouraging word, somebody that might be down, so that you can now provide for them what it is that they need. But then seeking justice, being a Christian does not cause us to turn a blind eye to the injustices that are being served in our society day in and day out, right? Nobody is above going through struggle in this life. However, but Jesus was about justice, right? Yes, we know him as the lion and the lamb, so there was that gracious part of Jesus. But at the same time, when he saw that they were ready to stone the young lady, who was out there in this time, and they were ready to stone her because they were saying that she's done this and she's had this many men. But he said, well, wait a minute, if you have no sin, then you cast the first stone. So also understanding that Jesus was here for justice, he was here for fairness. So if he's here for fairness, then so should we. And then rebuke the oppressor. It's easy to point the finger, and it's always easy to say what somebody else did wrong. versus as taking the time to say, well, hey, um, I was wrong on that one, right? That's on me, right? So we also want to realize and want to say that we're not above reproach, right? Wherever you are in your Christian walk, wherever you are in your journey, like just remember, fighting for the greater good of the kingdom, fighting for the greater good. What does that look like? Hey, it looks like you being willing to step up and say something in an uncomfortable situation. It looks like you uh, taking time to get with your team that you might be leading, and if something is out of whack, then somebody needs to make sure that something is said. If not, then it falls on deaf ears. And then lastly, obtaining justice for the orphan and pleading the widow's case. Like I said before, in the Old Testament, these were individuals who typically were left without, right? So the way that I grew up in the church, what was that if there was somebody that lost a spouse, or if there was a child who was brought along by that mother or by that father, and they might have been lacking some resources, then people would swing by their house, and they might drop off a plate, they might drop off a cake, they might drop off a pie. So understanding that if we're all one body and we call ourselves Christians, the Bible actually tells us that we should be known by our love. So how well are you loving? Right? Are you doing good? Are you seeking justice? Are you rebuking the oppressor? And then are you standing on business for the orphan and for the widow? Family, consider those things today. If you're trying to find out, where can I best serve, how can I best be the hands and feet of Christ, start there. We'll be right back with more Speaker Success in the Morning after this quick commercial break.